I moved to Charleston, West Virginia, and I was a manager at Champ Sports in Charleston, West Virginia, and there was there's a Royce Gracie gym there on, and there was George Gurgel Jiu-Jitsu gym, and can't remember the town. I'm trying to think. It's the same town that Marshall University is in. I can't remember the town in West Virginia, but it was like about a half hour, 40 minutes from me. And Butch Hiles ran the Royce Gracie gym in Charleston, West Virginia. So I was going to training there. He was super cool. He let me train there for free because, man, I was pissed broke, man. Like, I was so broke. And I was, when I got down to West Virginia to this store, the company was putting me up in this hotel room. I fucking stayed in that hotel room as long as I could till finally they're like, Dan, you gotta find a place to live. You can't keep staying in the hotel room, because they were paying for the hotel room. I stayed in that hotel room for, I don't know, man, fucking 2 or 3 months. And then I'm like, okay, so they told me I can't stay in the hotel room anymore. So I'm like, fuck, like I really couldn't afford to live. My girlfriend I had at the time stayed in Erie because she had kids there. She wouldn't come down to Charleston. And I'm thinking this was just a temporary thing. I just had to make some money to catch up on her bills, and then I'd come back. So I was sending her half my check. I was making like, I don't know, $800 or $900 take home a week. So I'm sending her like $450, $500 home a week. And so I got, half a paycheck to live off of. And I found this ghetto ass motel. So it was like, I don't know, it was off the beaten path. It didn't look too nice. So I walked up and I'm like, yeah, how much? They advertised weekly rooms, and they're like, I think it was $125 a week, and they're like, I'm not too. The guy told me, he's like, I'm not too sure if you want to stay here though. I was like, oh, I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, this is a working man's motel. I don't know what that meant. So I know what it means now, but I didn't know what it meant then. And he's like, well, I said, yeah, that's fine. I said, I'm not too sure what you mean. I said, I'm a working man. And he's like, no. What I'm getting at is, we rent these motels out by the week, by the day, and we also rent them out by the hour. And I didn't even really know what that meant. In Erie, where I'm from, didn't really think there was any hotels like that, at least none that I messed with. And now after I'm like, no, I said, no, it's cool. I was like, no, I said, this is fine. I'll be fine. He's like, okay, I'm just letting you know beforehand, this isn't, this is a working man's hotel. I said, okay. And then I realized what he meant by pay by the hour is that there was a lot of prostitutes and stuff that would use their rooms up there for their johns. So that was hilarious. So I get in this room and, oh God, it was fucking disgusting, dude. It was terrible. I literally bought boric acid. I bought a shit ton of it. Like the spiders in West Virginia, like they can be like this fucking big, man. Monstrous spiders. I found one. I walked in there one day after work, and there's this dead spider on my like, it was like I rated like a efficiency. So right in my kitchen in front of the fridge, man, there was a dead spider that like the body of it was like that, and with the legs it was probably like that. And I was like, what the fuck? So I bought some boric acid, and and it's white. Boric acid is white. I put a mound of it all around my bed. So I put all this boric acid around my bed. And I left it there, and that's where I slept for a while. And luckily, there was this really, really nice dude. I'm terrible with names, so I'm sorry that I can't remember your name. I'm friends with him on Facebook. He's actually in Florida right now. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's doing real good. But this cool dude at Butch's gym said, hey, you know, freaking, you know, I'm looking for a roommate to help pay the bills. He's like, I just live with my girlfriend, and, you know, we got a room. You can have, you know, we got a bed in there and everything, and it would only be this much money. It was super cheap. And I was like, yeah, dude, fuck yeah, you know. So I moved out of the hotel room, and I moved in with him. And he was super duper cool. He bounced at this bar called Coconut Joe's or something like that. Banana Joe's. Yeah, it was Banana Joe's. And he got me a part-time job working there, bouncing. And I was just training at Butch's gym, and then I was going to train at George Gurgel's gym, you know, down the way a little bit. So I was bouncing back and forth. Both places let me train for free, thank God. That was super nice of them. And, you know, at George's gym is really where I learned that, you know, man, like, I should probably still be a blue belt. You know, his blue belts were just, like, kicking my ass. And, Dustin Haslett was training there at the time, and this was like when he was an amateur, and you know what I mean? Like, he was fighting on the undercards of my fights, and then he ended up, you know, making it big in the UFC. He was super good, so I got to train with him on a regular basis, and this other guy, Ashley, at George's gym, he was super cool, man. Those guys were awesome at that gym. It was called Ground Zero jiu-jitsu gym. Those guys, every one of them guys was super, super duper cool. So George ended up doing a seminar there, and I talked to George. I've known George when I went to some fights. You know, me and him talked, and I'm talking to him, and I left Roy, and I'm training. I like all George's guys, and I like George personally himself. So I asked George if I could be a part of his association, and he's like, okay. He's like, well, I'm doing this seminar. He's like, you know, I said I wanted to get a private, so I got a private with him, and I'm talking to him, and he let me be a part of his association. That was kind of an interesting thing too, because this guy Dustin Ware, he teaches in Columbus. It's at Ohio Combat Sports Academy or something like that. And I don't know. Me and Dustin knew each other, but me and him really, I kind of felt like we just didn't get along. I don't think he liked me, and he's reffed some of my fights before. I've seen him at the NHB fights, and I think he talked to George, and because George told me like he had to talk to Dustin about it, and Dustin really wasn't a big fan of it. And the reason why Dustin wasn't a fan of it was because I talk shit. So I would talk shit to fighters, and George's gym was more of like the respect thing. They were more like quote unquote martial artists, you know, honor and respect and stuff like that. And I'm more like the troublemaker, talking shit. I'm like the wild and crazy person. And George had to talk with me about that. He's like, oh, you got to tone it down a little bit. You know, you're wild and crazy. You got to kind of settle down. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll settle down. But that's easier said than done. That probably lasted a few months, and then I was back to my same old self again. So George's gym is where I really learned. Like with Roy, I felt like I was really, really good on the basics. Like my escapes, no one could stay mounted on me. No one could stay side control. My basics were really good. But when it came to passing guard and getting into like the intermediate level of jiu-jitsu, I wasn't getting it. I wasn't learning that from Roy. So I really learned that from George and George's guys. John Stutzman, I ended up becoming really good friends with him, and he ended up becoming my instructor. He promoted me. Him and George promoted me to brown belt, and then John promoted me to black belt with George's permission. And John Stutzman promoted me to brown belt with his brown belt. So like I really thought that was a super big honor for me to get the brown belt from, you know, your instructor. Like that's just, you know, his brown belt was just tethered, man. That thing was like almost white. It was beat up. And then when I got my black belt, he promoted me to black belt with one of his black belts that he had that he would use as like a second black belt to train in and stuff like that. He spent a lot of time in, and that belt was pretty tethered. So I really thought it was a huge honor to be promoted by John with his belts. And unfortunately, me and him had a kind of a falling out when I got arrested for the dog fighting stuff. But I'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm training under George's banner, and everything's going really good. George was like, I always felt like he didn't corner me in every fight. I was fighting all the time, and I really wasn't like training like right out of one of his gyms. I was still kind of trying to do my own thing. When I moved back to Erie, and I was just still trying to do my own thing. I'd bring John Stutzman in for a seminar every now and then.